When I was 13, I remember coming home and my dad telling me that we were leaving.
I never really felt like I fit in with my family.
When I was 13 years old, in my mindset, I considered myself to be a full-grown man.
You know, living a pretty normal life to, you know, your parents are, you know, splitting up was kind of a shock. We moved across town to a pretty bad neighborhood. I, you know, got involved with a group of people that, you know, were into the party scene. That was my escape. That was my way to disconnect from the issues I was facing. That's the way I knew how to at that age. And, you know, met a guy, you know, I dated for a few years. He was into drugs. He had a really hard home life as well. So we really connected on that level of brokenness. I just didn't really know where to find love at that age, and so I found love in a relationship, and I found love in this group of partiers and hippies I hung out with.
I was adopted as a newborn. I grew up having this idea of what I thought my parents wanted. Whenever I was 13, I developed an eating disorder. In elementary school, I was just a really happy kid, and then something shifted in high school. I became very depressed, I guess would be the word. I started cutting. My senior year got a little harder. As the year went on, I developed a lot of health issues due to my eating disorder. I developed osteopenia, which is the beginning stages of osteoporosis. I ended up breaking my elbow later on that year, and it was really hard for them to even detect it because the quality of my bones were so bad.
As far as authority goes, parental roles or teachers or anybody that was in my life at that point in time, they didn't have it figured out to my best interests. I had to go get it on my own. Make a life that I wanted to live. I wanted prestige. I wanted money to, you know, just set up a kingdom for myself. I wanted to rule the world. And I looked around everywhere to find out who drives the nicest car and who's got the sweetest house and the hottest chicks that follow them around. Where I found it was in drug culture, the people that are selling dope, and I would look for mentorship from the most successful drug dealers that I could find. One of the reasons why I excelled so fast in selling drugs was that I looked so young. I could walk right in front of cops with a bag full of dope and they would have no idea.
During the time that I had been getting involved with party drugs, I had an incident that happened. I went to this guy's house, this nice hippie guy that we knew. He was like, well, you know, I got this really amazing like LSD. Did you want to try some? So when he went to go pour the vial of acid, a lot of LSD came out of the container that it was in. So I was really supposed to get 1 or 2 drops, and probably had 20 to 30 drops of LSD that had soaked into my bloodstream. And nobody really knew what to do, so they just said, be quiet about it. Don't tell anybody, you know, maybe just go to sleep, it'll pass by. So I'm laying down in my room, and my boyfriend comes in there at the time. He came in and, you know, he looked at me and he said, you know, I've always wanted to know what it felt like to be in hell. So from that point on, I just started having like these images, and I started almost like a spiritual world was open to me. I would literally see demons like in people, and I wanted to fight them off. So I actually ended up hitting my boyfriend and hitting some people. I was just gone. You know, my dad saw that I was really in trouble, you know, from what was happening to me, so he called the police, and they came, and, you know, I was still violent, so they had to handcuff me, and they took me in the ambulance to the hospital. My heart was like really close to almost, you know, exploding because it was pumping so hard, and they weren't quite sure if I was going to wake up.
But at this point, my health was very bad, and the doctors decided that I was going to have to go away to a treatment facility. I was told that I would have to stay a maximum of 6 weeks. I went to the treatment facility. I can remember my mom and dad coming in to family counseling, which I really didn't want to do. I wasn't at the point where I wanted to have a heart-to-heart with them. In that meeting, my mom said to me the words that I'd always wanted to hear. She said, "You're the daughter I always wanted." It was so significant for me because my whole life I lived thinking that her idea of the daughter that she wanted was not what I was. And so on that day, I felt a love from my mother that I never felt before.
By the time I was 18, I had already grown as a drug dealer. I put everything I had into it and got myself involved to a level where I was not comfortable at all. I had a lot of money. The problem that I had with that was that it was never enough. I always wanted more and more and more, so even though I had reached this level of success, there was just something missing. There was also another side of this industry that I didn't really align with. I definitely value life. I would never take somebody's life, and I grew to the point in this industry where I recognized that it was either kill or be killed. The first time my door got kicked in, they came into my house with a gun, and that was scary. I didn't want to lose my life, and it seemed like I was at that point. The following night or the night after, the door gets kicked in again. It was the cops this time. They had kicked down the door, and I was at gunpoint again. I was left, hanging with a serious debt. And I had expressed that I would pay back the money in uncertain terms, like I had no idea where I was getting it. I was very, very clear that I was not selling drugs anymore. I wanted to reconnect with my family, connect with my mom. And so I did, and started to develop relationship again with my parents and my brothers and sisters and all this. So I graduated high school, I went to work a legitimate job. I started to put away a little bit of money, but it was nowhere near enough. And while I'm at work, my old associates come in and visit me and talk to me about having to sit down and figure out how we're gonna pay back this debt.
Right before I passed out, I remember my dad was sitting beside me. My dad said, Kristen, I love you. And I remember when he said that to me, even in that state, I knew that it was the voice of God speaking to my heart. So it was really a miracle that I was able to wake up and my brain was functioning normally. Shortly after I went through that, was working my job, living my life. That had everything that I wanted, but I remember just this aching, this emptiness started to come over me that I couldn't explain, and I didn't want somebody to tell me what to believe, but I just knew that my soul was hungry to encounter something beyond myself. Something inside of me knew that God heard me, even though I didn't even fully know if I believed. So my mom had told me about this college group at my old church, and I was really close by, and I was just I wonder how these people would treat me. And then I get out of my car and I walk into the church, and I was expecting, people maybe to judge me. And so this was a lot different for me, actually, really feeling love from people, not wanting to really shove religion or anything down my throat, but this sense of family came over me that I hadn't experienced in a really long time. I opened my mouth and I just said, God, I'm sorry if I've offended you by my lifestyle. The bitterness I held on to just started melting away for other people, and I just started really just living this radical life of love.
Forced to leave treatment for a while because I wasn't, cooperating or whatever. And then I'd get put in the psych ward. I'd end up back in treatment. This cycle just continued for several months. So at the end of it all, what I thought was going to be a 6-week stay in treatment ended up being 2 years. The debt I was feeling from my parents paying for treatment, it's very expensive. I felt very guilty for what they were doing for me. And I felt like ending my life was just the best option for everybody involved. So that was one of the hardest seasons of my life that I've been through. During that time that I was in treatment, my friends came to visit me, the Christian friends that I had met in college. We were extremely close at this point. You know, they were always praying for me. They were always putting me on speakerphone while they were in intercession. And sometimes I was into it and sometimes I wasn't, but they played a big part in my life. My friends and I had heard about this place called The Ramp in Alabama, and I had no idea what was about to happen to me. Towards the end of the service at the altar call, I remember just praying, God, you know, just show me who you are. Like, I want to know what you think about me. And I can just remember being, you know, laying in the floor and seeing the eyes of Jesus looking back at me. And when I looked in his eyes, I felt the love that he had for me. I just felt the weight of what I had been doing all my life and the beauty of Jesus.
I go talk to my mom because it's the only thing I know what to do. She told me that I need to pay what I can, I need to pray, and I need to share what God's done in my life with these men. I thought she was crazy. So I had $3,000 in an account that I didn't know what I was going to do with necessarily, and that was all my money, that was all my savings from working legitimately. The problem was I had a $30,000 debt. What I felt God speak to me was that I'm to take that $3,000 and apply it to this debt because it is what I have to offer. Even though it was tough, gonna share what Jesus did in my life with these people. And God worked miraculously. It was amazing. They were receptive to hear what I've gone through, and they accepted the $3,000 as a complete payment toward the $30,000 debt. All I can, think of is how amazing God is in my life.
The love of God is kind. The love of God transforms. The love of God covers over sin. For me, the love of God saved my life.
The love of God to me looks like my parents who loved me unconditionally, my friends that never gave up on me even whenever I was a jerk to them, and it looks like Jesus. He set me free.
The love of God looks like the persistent prayers of my mother, protection from death, forgiveness of debt, my amazing, beautiful wife and children that I have now. God's love is amazing.